from the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. It's great to be back in the studio after a very exciting week at S4 last week, kind of learning more and being part of the OT and ICS and SCADA community and operational technology with some of the leading solution and security partners in the industry and some of the top minds. I'm still debriefing. I'll be posting something on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com, really summarizing my experience from S4 and everything that goes along there, because I think it's one of the more underrated conferences in our industry. So with that being said, good morning, everyone tuning in here. Good morning to the interpreter, John De La Cruz and Jaime Garcia. Good morning to all of y'all. Happy Monday. I hope everyone had a good Valentine's Day and a good weekend. We've got a packed show, so let's get the ball rolling. And as my buddy John De La Cruz says, good morning, coffee cup cheers. My double espresso, coffee cup cheers, y'all. So one thing I miss about like being in the studio is having my own espresso. Like, really. All right, Salt Typhoon is going global. So for those who don't know, let me give you a quick recap of Salt Typhoon. Salt Typhoon, a Chinese APT that's responsible for what could be and what potentially is the largest and most deadly cybersecurity incident in U.S. history. They essentially were able to infiltrate Cisco routers and get into many telecom companies, ISPs, and universities. The full report on Salt Typhoon has not been released yet. The DOJ hasn't made any announcements yet. This did happen back they discovered this back in October. They kept it really quiet leading into the election. And then it really kind of started becoming mainstay after the election. And now we're getting more information on Salt Typhoon as more TTPs and IOCs become available. More threat hunters are starting to identify exactly the scope of Salt Typhoon and its significance. So if you want to compare this, and a lot of people asked me last week, like, how do you compare Salt Typhoon to potentially, what happened at SolarWinds or Vault Typhoon or others? I would say that Salt Typhoon was able to get a backdoor into sensitive and proprietary and national security type of systems and established a type of persistence that made it extremely difficult to get out of. Specifically speaking, I spoke with someone last week who was a Salt Typhoon victim, who said it took them weeks, if not months, to get Salt Typhoon out of their environment. That's how good it was embedded. In a statement to Dark Reading, a Cisco spokesperson wrote they're aware of new reports that claim Salt Typhoon are exploiting two known vulnerabilities in Cisco devices relating to the iOS XE. To date, they have not been able to validate these claims, but continue to review available data. But this isn't just it. Back in October of 2023, Cisco were urging all customers to pull these routers off the web, at least those running the iOS XE operating system. And now we go away from the Cisco issue to security practitioners, and it's time to give an honest mirror look. We often get hit with these patches. And sometimes the best thing to do is rip them out. Meaning if you're gluten for punishment, then you really enjoy Avanti on your endpoints. But Cisco here kind of did come out and say, folks, CVE 2023-201-9 needs to be addressed ASAP. And a lot of organizations either didn't take it seriously or security practitioners said, we'll just shut down the ports or whatever the case may be. And we know now that didn't solve the problem. And Salt Typhoon and the Chinese are taking advantage of that. The complacency in patching is mind-boggling when we understand that that's the basic blocking and tackling you need in order to run a good offense and in order to run a good defense. You got to have good patching. And if you don't have good patching, you're really running at a disadvantage. You're running at a significant disadvantage, irregardless to what shiny new toy you put on your rack or in your environment. Salt Typhoon, however, has gone global. U.S. affiliate of UK Telco, a U.S. telco and ISP, an Italian ISP, a South African telco, a Thai telco, Mytel, one of Myanmar's premier telco. Salt Typhoon is targeting telcos all over the world. And again, that's part of a greater Chinese plan. understanding the 100-year Chinese plan, understanding that we're in the midst of this shift to Asia, to China. The current administration's shift to Asia is a very, very important one, because China is leading the world by death by 1,000 cuts, and eventually you'll bleed out. And you have to stop the bleeding, and you've got to refocus. And this seems to be the message carried out by the current administration, by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, by Vice President Vance, and many others, including Mike Walls, the National Security Advisor, and many others over the weekend, of the refocus to Asia. Besides Telco and ISP, Salt Typhoon also attacked 13 universities, including the University of California in Los Angeles, UCLA, and 3 more U.S. institutions, plus more in Argentina, Indonesia, and the Netherlands. More of these universities perform significant research in telcos, engineering, and other areas of technology. All of this is significant because that's how China is able to put out good products cheap, because they don't have to do the R&D. They steal the R&D. That's their MO. So Salt Typhoon remaining a threat, something to really keep in mind. Last week on the website, I wrote on cyberhubpodcast.com, I wrote a whole article on how to explain China to the board. I hope you'll consider subscribing and being able to access that article. Israeli threat intelligence firm ClearSky is warned on Thursday last week that it has seen an APT linked to China exploiting another window vulnerability. ClearSky is promising to share additional details in an upcoming blog post, but a post on X suggested that the Windows vulnerability is being exploited as a zero-day, but no CVE appears to be assigned to it just yet. Microsoft said they're aware of the flaw, but classified it as low severity. ClearSky, for their end, described the issue as a UI vulnerability and found evidence of exploitation by Mustang Panda. The security firm also shared technical details. When files are extracted from compressed RAR files, they are hidden from the user. If the compressed files are extracted into a folder, the folder appears empty in the Windows Explorer GUI. When using the dir command and list all files and folders inside the target folder, the extracted files and folders are invisible, hidden to the users. Threat actors or users can also execute those compressed files from a command line prompt if they know the exact path. Continuing, as a result of the executing the attrib sh to system protected files, an unknown file type is created from the type of unknown ActiveX components. I will say this: I've had many briefings with the folks over at ClearSky. They don't post stuff if they don't know it for 100%. So keep your eyes out for this. We will as well, and we'll look to reach out from someone from ClearSky the moment they're able to release the blog post and have them on the show to talk about more about this Windows zero-day. Attackers are also launching attacks against Palo Alto's PAN-OS firewalls by exploiting a recently fixed vulnerability that's CVE 2025-0108 that does allow bypassing authentication. The security issue received a high severity score from Palo Alto, and it would allow an unauthenticated attacker on the network to bypass authentication and invoke certain PHP scripts, potentially compromising integrity and confidentiality. The security bulletin on February 12th, Palo Alto Networks urges admins to upgrade firewalls to the versions below to address the issue, and we'll put these on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. The vulnerability was discovered and reported to Palo Alto by security researchers at AssetNode. They also published a complete write-up with complete exploitation details when the patch was released, and you can see that again. We'll have this all available on cyberhubpodcast.com. The Virginia Attorney General Office, the state's top prosecutorial agency, led by Jason Miyares, was struck by a cyber attack this week, forcing officials off the office computer system. According to the Richmond Times-Dispatch, the Chief Deputy Attorney General of the agency sent an email on Wednesday that said nearly all of its computer systems were offline, and that the Virginia State Police and other law enforcement officials were investigating the attack. Nearly all systems were offline, including but not limited to NetDocs, Outlooks, Teams, OAG file share, our VPN access, internet connectivity via the OAG network, according to Deputy Attorney General Stephen Pops in an email to staff. Meyer's office didn't immediately respond to comments on the attack. According to the Times Dispatch, the Supreme Court of Virginia and the Court of Appeal of Virginia offered access to paper court filing baskets that attorneys had previously chosen to use, so they're having to go back to paper. There's a new malware called Finaldraft that's been using Outlook email drafts for command and control communications and attacks against a ministry in a South American country. And again, you're starting to see this sophistication here. It typically starts somewhere abroad, and then it makes its way into more popular and more presumptuous, more lucrative targets. The attack was discovered by the Elastic Security Labs and relies on a complete toolset that includes a custom malware loader named Path Loader, a Finaldraft backdoor, and multiple post-exploitation utilities. The attack begins once the threat actor compromises a target system with Path Loader, a small executable file that executes shellcode, including the Finaldraft malware retrieved from the attacker infrastructure. The Path Loader incorporates protections against static analysis by performing API hashing and using string encryption. Again, all of these matter. These are all ways to identify this type of attack. Finaldraft itself is used for data exfiltration and process injection. After loading the configuration and generating a session ID, the malware establishes communication through a Microsoft Graph API by sending and receiving commands through Outlook email drafts. Finaldraft retrieves an OAuth talk from Microsoft using a refresh token embedded in its configuration and stores it in the Windows registry for persistent access. Again, going after identity. Identity is the new perimeter, and you see how they leverage these session IDs and session tokens in order to gain persistence. So the very things we're trying to keep them out of, they're now using as part of their attacks. It lets you know just how critical it is to really have full insights into your identity and how tokens are being refreshed and logging and having that user analytic behavior in there and identifying all these things. Finaldraft supports a total of 37 commands, the most important being data exfil, process injection, past the hash attacks, network proxying, file operation, and PowerShell execution. Again, we'll stick these in our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. A Russian-linked threat actor tracked as Storm 2372 has been targeting government and private organization in a global campaign employing device code phishing for account compromise, according to Microsoft. The campaign's been ongoing since at least August of 2024, targeting entities in government, IT, defense, telecom, health, education, and energy, as well as some NGOs in Africa, Europe, the Middle East, and North America. Relying on a numeric or alphanumeric code, the device code authenticator flow is used to authenticate an account from a device that cannot perform an interactive authentication. As part of the device code phishing, the threat actor would ask the targeted service to generate a device code and convinces the victim to enter that code on a legitimate sign-in page. The targeted service then generates an access token that the attacker can recover and abuse to access the target's account data. The technique could enable persistent access as long as the token remains valid, making this attack technique attractive to some threat actors and going back to the idea that tokens shouldn't be active for very, very long. So one of the things we've done on the identity side, kind of on MFA, is we've made it so that you don't need to have a very complex password because we have MFA. Yet what we've also done is we've done two negatives to try to fix a user thing, which is strong passwords, strong MFA. What we said is don't worry about strong passwords. You're going to have MFA. So have a password. It's going to be 14 characters. We set our policies and game over. However, these tokens remaining valid for 30 days, 90 days, 180 days, some tokens don't expire in some organization. That becomes the challenge because once they're able to do this, they're in and it'll take you forever to get them out. You won't even know they're in. And so the longevity of a token should be no more than one business day of someone's workday. So 12 hours, 18 hours, 24 hours, and refresh that token. That kicks them out. And then even if they got in one day, they'd have to refresh it the second day. The user would be like, this is really irritating. Again, call the help desk. The help desk would then look at this and you'd get an early detection. We can't compromise some of these things. And I know I'm the first to talk about business processes, but this is one of those when you explain it and you're able to roll it out through IT, through infrastructure, you will get the buy-in because of these types of attacks. So there we go. Russia, again, Russia and China, at the top of the list. Texas is investigating DeepSeek for violating data privacy law. Texas on Friday announced it's investigating the Chinese AI company for allegedly violating the state's data privacy law. Attorney General Ken Paxton has also requested relevant documents from Google and Apple, seeking their analysis of the inexpensive and open source DeepSeek app and asking what documentation they're required from DeepSeek before they made the app publicly available for download on their app store. So Texas leading the way, and there's more bills coming through to block DeepSeek. And finally, some industry news and some good ones at that here as we wrap up the show this morning. On Friday, SailPoint launched their IPO, the first tech IPO of 2025. The company raised $1.4 billion after pricing its shares at $23, ended the Friday with a market cap of around $13.3 billion. The initial public offering comes 3 years after a $6.9 billion all-cash buyout by private equity firm Thomas Bravo that took SailPoint private after its initial debut in 2017. Now they're back and being public. So there's that, and that's good. That's showing that there's appetite to invest in tech, which might get more companies now looking at this as kind of the year to go IPO. Eyes on Wiz and a few others for that. CyberArk also consolidating by acquiring Zilla as part of its plan to add identity governance and administration capabilities to its PAM platform. A $165 million deal was announced on Thursday and it's already closed. Zilla is a small IAG provider that was led by Avaska founder and CEO Deepak Danja. CyberArk said it had $5 million in annual recurring revenue last year, 40 employees, and 125 customers. During CyberArk's earning call with investor CEO Matt Cohen, touted Zilla's modern IGI platform. So it's going to be now about acquiring the technology, merging it together into the CyberArk platform. But again, some news there as well. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest and greatest. Until then, make sure to go check out our website, cyberhubpodcast.com. Comment, like, share, and let us know if there's any stories you want us to do a deep dive on. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great week. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.